I don't know if you guys remember the old Liebherr 922 I bought a couple months ago that had all of the electronics fried during transport because it got caught in the rain. We had a hurricane and it wasn't tarped, so unfortunately everything got soaked and everything got ruined. I showed you guys in that video that we had rewired this machine so that it would run, and it does run and operate, but we never had a chance to either fix the magnet system or install a grapple on it. So the past couple days I've been troubleshooting the magnet system on this machine so that we can get it moved out from underneath our tent makeshift shop area so we can start using this for other machines. And also my plan over the next week and the next month is to really get our storage lot cleaned up, and part of that is starting over here and getting this organized. We had a new mechanic join the team, and I just want to start fresh and kind of get our projects organized and prioritized, and so anyways I started here. I had some real trouble trying to figure out why the magnet system wasn't working, and it ended up being a pretty simple problem. So let me show you what I found out. So you guys will have to bear with me a little bit. It is a mess back here. We've been shorthanded for a few months, and so we have not had time to clean up and organize, which is why it looks the way it does. Also, I've got a new camera set up that I'm sort of testing today, so if I have some bad camera work, you'll just have to forgive me. So on this machine, we bought it with this magnet, but the magnet did not work. And so once we got everything rewired, we actually had not reconnected the controls back to the magnet controller, which I'll show you in just a second. But this magnet does ohm out correctly. I believe there's no issue with the magnet. We went ahead and hooked it up a couple times to test to see if it would turn on before we reconnected it to the end of the stick. And we also verified that the wire running down the length of the stick and the boom was in good shape, and we're all good there. So one of the biggest things we had to make sure worked properly was the generator, because obviously if you don't have power, you're not going to be able to use the magnet. So I verified that the generator was in good shape. The only issue we had back here is these belts were loose. So I went ahead and got those tightened. The only thing I need to get is some bolts to put back into the bracket to hold it firm. But for now, for testing purposes, it is in good shape. So I'm sure a lot of people aren't exactly familiar with how a magnet system works, and to be honest, I'm not all that well versed in them, other than I've had to fix a couple of them from time to time on our machines. But basically, you've got two panels. You've got the actual magnet controller itself over here on the left, and then you've got what I've been calling the sub panel. I don't know if that's the correct term or not, but basically this is what has the wire that connects the generator to this panel. You have your resistor bars at the top, which is how you set the resistance on the generator itself, and you can adjust your voltage by moving that jumper wire back and forth. Someone may know some more technical terms or explanation than that, but basically we've got the voltage set correctly for this system at around 230 volts by adjusting that wire. And then you basically just have your power going out through those two fuses, and those fuses are good, and then the power runs out of this panel and over to the controller. So we had to reconnect the controls in the cab, which is basically just a switch on one of the joysticks that tells this controller to turn on and turn off. And the problem we were having is we have correct voltage going into this panel, and when we engage it, it would work. The lift arm would pull in, and so basically this would pull in like that, and our copper contacts would make connection, which you can see the copper contacts are brand new as well. The problem we were having is we had no power going out, and so again, I don't know everything about these panels, but I know enough to look for broken wires, loose connections, those sorts of things. We ohmed out the coils. Everything seemed to work properly, and I've never had a controller where the lift coil pulls in, but we don't get power going out. So after messing with it for a couple days, today I called the Ohio Magnetics parts distributor, and I sort of asked them to help me troubleshoot it a little bit, and he was asking me a bunch of questions, most of which I had already checked. But while I was talking to him, I'm standing here looking at it, and he says, well, how about your flat wires going from the lifting arm, which are these, back to the panel? And so I said, yeah, I checked those, everything seemed fine, let me check again. And so when I grabbed this one, it's a little bit loose, but it is still connected tight on the stud. And then I reached over and grabbed this one, and when I wiggled it, this thing must have had just a couple tiny little copper strands still holding it. As soon as I sort of wiggled it back and forth, it popped right off. So I believe that is our problem, why we're not getting power back through the panel to the magnet itself. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that wire off and fix it, check it for voltage there. If everything is all good, then I should be good to hook the magnet up and connect it to the end of the stick, and the magnet should work. So I'm gonna get that wire fixed, and then we're gonna find out. All right, so I've got the broken wire off. You can see I opted just to basically take the entire lift arm off. It has these little rusty bolts that are just flat head screwdriver heads, and I was afraid that those would just round off, and then I'd have a bigger problem trying to get this removed. So instead of pulling it off here, I'm just going to recrimp an end on the end of the wire and not even take this off, and then just reinstall this arm. It is a little bit tight in here. I had to crawl inside and sort of sit on those buckets down there on the left to be able to work on this, so it's really too tight to film. So I'll just show you guys once I get it all put back together. All right, so I've got everything hooked back up. I have the wire reinstalled with a new end crimped on it. For now, just ignore this mess of wires. I'm gonna tie these red ones up so they're not in interference with the controller. And then once I verify everything works, I'm gonna get back in here and really secure everything, put the cover panels back on, etc., etc. So I'm pretty confident that's gonna be our issue and that's gonna be our fix. So I'm gonna set the camera up out here next to the magnet, and before I even verify voltage or anything, I'm just gonna get in there and turn the magnet on. I have the magnet wire reconnected, and I have that empty spray can next to the magnet. So if everything works properly and the magnet engages, that can should pull over to the magnet. Well guys, as you can see, the magnet engaged that time and it moved the can over to the magnet. So that is great news. I'm gonna set the camera back up and actually get the magnet hung on the end of the stick, and that way I can take it out on the yard and actually test use it. Make sure it's gonna actually pick up a load and not just move some tiny little can that almost weighs nothing. Well, the good news is the magnet engaged and the magnet system seems to be working properly now. The bad news is I moved the machine and I didn't make it very far. You can see the tent building behind me where it was parked before, and I only made it this far before I blew a hydraulic line. That's the worst part about leaving a machine sitting for a long period of time. The hydraulic lines start to rot, and then when you use the machine again, you start to blow them fairly regularly. So I anticipate when we start to use this machine more often, we will have hydraulic lines blow periodically until we get a lot of them replaced. Hopefully not, but that's the inevitable truth with a machine this old. Anyways, this machine's gonna be stuck here for another day or so until we get those hydraulic lines replaced, because we're gonna replace both of them that run together underneath the cab. And then we should be ready to finish buttoning this machine up and actually put it into some real testing or some real use. So when we get to that point, I'll make another video and show you guys, but I just wanted to keep you up to date on how this project was sort of progressing or taking place. I was hoping to have it completely finished today until we ran into that little snag. But as always, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and we'll see you on the next one.